everybody. Welcome to the latest installment of the Flash Focus Hall of Fame positional tier list ratings. Today we'll be doing second baseman. First up is Roberto Alomar. Alright, so Roberto Alomar was a 67 WAR guy in the 90s, late 80s too. He was on the Padres, Blue Jays, Orioles, Indians. Then he kind of flamed out and bounced around for a few years. And I was surprised at how quickly his career dried up. I mean, he was on those, 99 to 2001 Indians. He had a 7.3 WAR in 01 and then just never cracked one again after that. So he was definitely considered an all-time great until then. And then he just kind of flamed out. And then he won a bunch of gold gloves, but WAR doesn't really think much of his fielding. He's rated as a well below average fielder for his career. Certainly an excellent hitter. What was his OPS plus? 116. That's great for a second baseman, 300 hitter. He hit, 20-some dingers a couple times. How many good WAR seasons did he have? He had 5 or 6 excellent, Hall of Fame caliber seasons, no doubt. Some allegations of sexual improprieties did emerge after he was already in the Hall of Fame, so that's not nothing. But I don't know what to do with Roberto Alomar. He's a bit of a problematic case. Another thing I wanted to point out is this table has the average. So the average Hall of Fame second baseman has about 70 WAR and it was about 5.1 WAR per 162, just to kind of contextualize things. All right, anyway, Roberto Alomar. Smokey, what do you think about Roberto Alomar?
I think he's below average, but what I will say is I thought he was better than this.
Right.
When I come back to, I watched him when I was growing up. I watched him in the 95 World Series. I thought he was really good in the moment. When you told me his WAR was 67, I was a bit shocked.
Yeah.
And then the allegations came out. I mean, I put him at a D, maybe a C, Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I'm thinking C. He definitely felt like a future Hall of Famer throughout his career. You gotta ding him for, his off the field stuff, but certainly one of the best second basemen of his generation. So yeah, I think C kind of just averages out everything reasonably well. All right, next up is Craig Biggio. Craig Biggio had almost identical WAR to Alomar. He had 65. He did have 3,000 hits. No MVPs, 7 All-Stars, 4 Gold Gloves, and he did play multiple positions. He played catcher early in his career, and he spent a couple years in left field there in the middle. I believe when they picked up Jeff Kent, he moved to the outfield in the early 2000s. Let's see what his... All right, he had a few, that one great season in 97 and several very good seasons. He was an everyday Eddie type of guy, so, he's scoring lots of runs, getting lots of plate appearances, hitting lots of doubles. I will say this. He almost 300 homers. Man, that's a lot of doubles, 668 doubles, wow. And a lifer Astro. But I will say that Biggio did not feel like a future Hall of Famer to me. I remember his whole career. He seemed like certainly a good or very good player, but I was just a little surprised that he stuck it out long enough to get 3,000 hits and made it in. He got his 3,000 hits. He hit a lot of doubles. He played multiple positions. He stole a lot of bases, 400 steals, and he led the league once, stole 50 once. I don't know. He feels like a below average Hall of Famer to me overall, just because he didn't feel like a Hall of Famer during his career. Certainly belongs. He got his 3,000 hits, but yeah, I'm not really sure what to do about Craig Biggio. What do you think about Craig Biggio?
Yeah, I think he got in because he had 3,000 hits.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, the WAR doesn't scream surefire Hall of Famer. If you gave him a C, that'd be fine.
Yeah, he's a compiler, but I mean, compilers aren't necessarily non-Hall of Famers if they play as much as a guy like Biggio did. I'm certainly not arguing he's not a Hall of Famer. He got his 3,000 hits. I'm fine with him being in the Hall, but he feels like a below-average Hall of Famer, and I think he's what the D tier is meant to capture. A guy that does belong, but he just isn't up to snuff with everybody else.
Sure.
All right. Up next is Rod Carew. You know you're famous when you make it into a Beastie Boys and an Adam Sandler song. So Rod Carew was one of the all-time great contact hitters. Another 3,000 hit guy, 80 WAR. He did move to second base midway through his career. Man, led the league in WAR 3 times and cracked 6 a couple more times. Won, what is that, 7, 8 batting titles. And, backed it up with on-base titles. Even has an OPS plus leading the majors. That was his MVP year in 77. Also won the Rookie of the Year. Man, this guy, he might be one of the most famous Hall of Famers, because he made it into all those songs. Panamanian, I believe he's the only Panamanian. Oh, Mariano Rivera. 2 Panamanians. But the first Panamanian in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, this guy, he screams A tier to me. What do you think about Rod Carew?
Yeah, I think he's A tier. Celebrity status aside, his numbers speak for themselves. He's a really good Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah. All-time great. All right, up next is Eddie Collins. Eddie Collins is my pick for most underrated player ever. Almost nobody's heard of this guy. 124 WAR. That's twice as much. That's like Alomar and Biggio put together. He had 3,300 hits. Okay, so Eddie was the Phillies and White Sox second baseman in the aughts, teens, 20s, and 30s. Wow, he had a very long career, 25 years. Man, this guy just he was just one of those all-time greats that you just never hear about. I believe he was in the inaugural Hall of Fame class or one of the early ones. Yeah, he got in 39. I forgot when the exact first year was, but late 30s. If you get in one of those classes, you're inner ring in terms of the guys that came before that. Like you didn't have to wait to get in on the a veterans committee or anything like that. Now I get that nobody's heard of Eddie Collins, so I can't put him in S tier. But to me, he's like an A plus tier. Any words on Eddie Collins?
I've heard of him. I mean, he's one of the greats. 124 WAR. Look at who he's up there with. I mean, he belongs in the S tier. I'm sorry.
You want him up there in the S tier? All right, let's revisit him for the S tier because there are a few other guys that make the S tier, and I do want the S tier to be, inner ring, and I don't want there to be too many guys up there. So let's tell you what. We'll earmark him on the border so we remember to come back to him later. All right, next up after Eddie Collins is Bobby Durr. So Bobby Durr, as they called him in Boston. He was the Red Sox second baseman throughout the 30s and 40s. He did miss a prime season, age 27, to World War II. So he had 51 WAR, 2,000 hits, 9-time All-Star, rated as a good fielder. He had 1 slugging title, which is pretty cool for a second baseman. 115 OPS plus. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can buy this guy as being a Hall of Famer, but he certainly seems a below average Hall of Famer. He did miss a key season to World War II, so I think you can kind of throw him a little bone, give him, an extra season's worth of eliteness there. Maybe get some closer to 60. But I don't know. Bobby Durr's a D Hall of Famer for me. What do you think of Bobby Durr?
Yeah, I mean, he's not terribly unimpressive or impressive. If you wanted to put him in the B, I'd be fine with that. I think that's where he belongs.
Yeah, D feels about right. It's like I'm cool with him being in, but man, there's no one thing you can point to and be like, man, this guy. You know what I mean? All right, after Durs, Johnny Evers. Johnny Evers is in because of a poem, Tinker to Evers to Chance. So Evers was the Cubs' second baseman in the aughts, teens, and played a little bit in the 20s. Looks like a publicity stunt stuff. So, 1,600 hits. What's his, 106 OPS plus. Not, I mean, good, but not Hall of Fame caliber for a second baseman. He did win an MVP, and he won 3 rings as a Cub. When was his MVP year? It was here in 14 for Boston. So, yeah, it looks like he must have had some intangibles because he didn't win the MVP because of his bat. Although 390 on base is quite good. Not that they were looking at that. 1 homer. Dead ball era, of course. Let's look at his WAR seasons. Yeah, he only hit 6 once and 5 3 times. Ugh. Man, this guy, he's either an E or an F. He's certainly, I don't know, I don't know. What do you think of Johnny Evers? Do you think he belongs in the Hall of Fame? Do you think, am I being uncharitable putting him at E?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a name recognition thing, like you alluded to. I don't feel anything in his numbers makes him deserve to be any higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the poem was written because those 3 guys were 3 great teammates that everybody needed to know about. So, like, I can get that the fact that they were immortalized in that poem is, like, just evidence you can point to that, these were the guys that were famous, popular, important, and needed to be remembered, even if they weren't looking at their WAR or their RBAT plus back then. But I think he's about as fringy as a Hall of Famer as it gets. But I don't think I'm quite in kick him out territory because he had the MVP. He did have several excellent seasons. But did we look at his fielding? Rated as a very good field. Okay. I'm fine with E in that case. He was a terrific fielding second baseman. You may stay. I just consider you fringy. All right. Next is Nellie Fox, kind of a similar guy. He did win an MVP. So Nellie was the Cubs' second baseman in the 50s mostly. So yeah, tons of bold here. He did 1, 2, 3, 4 hits titles. He won the MVP there in 59. I believe the Cubs won the pennant that year. So great season, 6 WAR. So when I look at his WAR, 2 6 WAR seasons. Maybe should have won the MVP in 57. I think that was Hank Aaron's only MVP year, though. All right, but yeah, just not seeing much of a peak. 49 WAR. 2,600 hits is good for a second baseman. Another terrific fielder. I see Nellie Fox as maybe like a Dustin Pedroia type, scrappy guy, good contact hitter, not a power hitter or anything, obviously. He didn't steal bases either, which is weird for a nimble second baseman. 94 OPS plus. I don't know. I'm cool with him being in the Hall of Fame, but he seems kind of below average of a Hall of Famer. He feels like a D tier to me. What do you think of Nellie Fox?
Yeah, I mean, not arguing with you too much on that. I think we're so spoiled, like, as we get more towards the modern era with good hitters. I don't think second basemen have traditionally been great hitters up until, maybe the last 40 years or so.
Yeah.
And I think we're spoiled. I think, starting in the 80s and 90s, we started to see, like, Ryan Sandbergs and other guys that are just, Rod Carew, and then, we got the modern hitters that are just, they're better hitters. And I think this is a product of the era. I just don't think second basemen were known as great hitters back then. And he was good for the era. So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, look at these nicknames. Mighty Mite or Little Nell, implying he was small, but he was 5'10". Yeah, and then the only thing small about him is his non-tobacco cheek. All right. Up after Nellie Fox is Frankie Frisch. So, Frankie Frisch, Cardinals and Giants second baseman of the 20s and 30s. Won the MVP in 31 for those Gas House Gang Cardinals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 seasons over 7 WAR, close enough for me. A few steals, crowns, 100 homers, pretty good pop for a second baseman back then. 72 WAR. Now the thing about Frankie Frisch is he's the Veterans Committee crony guy. Not saying this should impact his playing career because it came well after, obviously. But he got a bunch of bogus Hall of Famers in, his old buddies from the Cardinals and Giants during his playing days. So I don't know, totally deserving Hall of Famer in every way. Almost got 3,000 hits, 2,800 or almost 2,900. Wow, 316 batting average, 400 steals. He feels like straight up and down a C tier Hall of Famer to me. What do you think of Frankie Frisch?
Yeah, right in that wheelhouse of C tier. Like, nothing impressive, nothing terrible. It just feels like a C.
Yeah, straight up and down. All right, next up is Charlie Gehringer. Gehringer? It doesn't even say. It must be Gehringer. The guy that you think is Lou Gehrig for a second until you read more closely. He's another really underrated guy that more people should know about. 85 WAR, 2,800 hits. Man, just tons of bold. He had this phenomenal season in 29 for the Tigers. Tigers lifer, which is pretty cool. Won an MVP in 37. Whoops, sorry, doing some row things by accident. Man, he cracked 7 WAR 5 times. Yeah, this guy is just a really under the radar A tier to me. What do you think about Charlie Gehringer?
Yeah, I mean, he looks like an A tier. 80 something WAR, but let's go back to Eddie Collins, 124 WAR.
Yeah.
If you want to put Gehringer in the A tier, I'm going to pound the table for Eddie Collins. Like, he belongs in the S tier.
All right. Again, there are several other guys that will be going in the S tier later. We're kind of bottom loaded here. Let's just see how Eddie Collins does against those guys later. I may well move him up to S tier and have no problem doing that. But you'll see. All right. Next up, we got Joe Gordon. So Joe Gordon was the Yankees and Indians second baseman, and then mostly in the 40s. He did miss 2 prime seasons, his age 29 and 30 season of World War II, and looks like maybe part of his age 31 season. So he had 56 WAR, but he was quite good, putting up 6-7 WAR like clockwork. So shoot, you could add 15 or so to that, get him up around 70. Not much in the way of black ink. Where's his glove? Phenomenal second baseman defensively, just consistently rated very high. 9-time All-Star. I think this might be one of those guys who just really, World War II kind of took his legacy from being maybe like an average to slightly above average Hall of Famer down to below average Hall of Famer, just because he missed out on, a lot of those eye-popping career numbers. 253. Wow, he hit 30 homers twice and 29, 28. Yeah, this is another guy, not much of a base stealer. Yeah, it looks like he was maybe Jeff Kent type guy, power hit. Well, much better fielder than Jeff Kent.
And he missed a couple years in the prime of his career.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I'm willing to give him a C tier average Hall of Famer. He doesn't really have any star power, like, nobody's heard of him or anything, but he has some very good numbers. He's not much in the, rate stat department. His slash line is, not remarkable. 120 OPS plus is quite good for a second baseman. I don't know, feels like a straight up C tier to me. What do you think of Joe Gordon?
I mean, I really feel like you gotta account for, the missed years in the prime of his career. I mean, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. So you thinking more B tier?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right, I can live with that. He was certainly an excellent ball player. All right. Up next after Gordon is Billy Herman. All right, so Billy, 10-time All-Star, is mostly on the Cubs in the 30s. He was their second baseman. Then he kind of bounced around. One, two, only three, excellent seasons over six. Like his fourth best season was only 4.4. You do see some black ink. Looks like he was a good contact hitter. Ooh, terrible base stealer. Wow, more caught stealing than stolen bases. Gosh, what a horrible base runner. Sorry, Billy. That's awful. Anyway, 57 doubles one year. No MVPs, but he got a bunch of attention and finished top 5, looks like 3 times. 57 WAR, did miss 2 seasons to World War II. Toward the end of his career, but he was still a 4 WAR player then, so, maybe add 8 to his WAR, get him up in the mid-60s. So, I see a kind of a mid-60s, marginally below average guy I've never heard of. No MVPs or anything you can really point to. What's his OPS plus? 112. Lower than some of the other bat first guys here. I don't know. He feels kind of like another D tier to me. What do you think of Billy Herman?
Yeah, I think C or D. That caught stealing thing is bizarre.
That's nuts.
That bad judgment?
Yeah, just toxic confidence.
Overconfident?
Yeah. He needs he needs a little humility.
I would put him at a D tier. Hall of Famers don't do that.
Yeah, hopefully putting him in the D tier 75 years after he died will teach him a lesson. All right.
Yeah.
Next up is Rogers Hornsby. Man, just Hornsby is probably just I'm going to put him right in the S tier. There's no brainer about that. Hornsby. Here, let's move Collins over here to get him out of the way for the other guys. All right, Rogers Hornsby. Wow, 127 WAR. Almost got 3,000 hits. 30 homers. Hit 40 homers. 39 another time. 39 again. Look at all these WAR titles. He had 10 WAR like 7 times or whatever. Man, just a bit of a journeyman. It should be said that the reason he moved around a bunch was because he was a jerk and nobody liked him. I believe I've heard rumors that he may have been an active Klansman during his career. So, F-tier human being. But, man, he's just like, wow. Just look at look at those rate stats. Jeez. And this guy was up this is the 20, not in the same league as Babe Ruth, but like, he was kind of the NL Babe Ruth there throughout the 20s. So, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be friends with the guy, but, man, just the numbers are so good. 2 MVPs, 2 Triple Crowns, 7 batting titles. Yeah, just no-brainer S tier. What do you think of Rogers Hornsby?
I mean, he's 3 WAR points above Eddie Collins.
Yeah.
Not the same. I mean, there's some dings on his personal, but yeah, I mean, he's just one of those based on being a player. It seems to be, an S tier. Anything over 120 is like instantly you'll want to put him in the S tier.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that, and again, I may end up capitulating. All right, after that is Nap Lajoie. I believe the only Hall of Famer to have his team named after him. The Cleveland Indians were called the Cleveland Napoleons while Nap was on it. So 107 WAR, Triple Crown, 3 batting titles. Man, tons of how many WAR titles is that? 7 or something, and then another one where he could have led the league. Man, he didn't have. Oh, they didn't really have the MVP back then. Forget it. So yeah, he was mostly on the Indians and then Napoleons. So obvious S tier, Cleveland guy. Oh, he was on both Philly teams for a little bit there. Didn't realize he spent so much time.
Was he a manager too?
Was he? Unless I'm missing it, I don't see. Was he a manager? Oh yeah, he was a manager. Let's look at his manager stats real quick. Yeah, just for a couple years there as a player manager, but that's kind of neat. I think he has the most doubles or something. No, not the most doubles, but many doubles. And he led the league in homers one year. Yeah, to me, he's another AS Stradler. I think just because he lacks the star power, I'm kind of like thinking he's similar to Eddie Collins. Just like a guy that like should be more famous but isn't. I don't. What do you think of Knapp? Do you put him in the S or A tier?
How do you do as a player manager?
Let's see. No pennants. Although back then, remember, you had to win the league or he didn't make the playoffs. He actually only had 3 full seasons, and he finished second, third, and fourth. Had a winning record all 3 years, but yeah, I don't know. I would say an unremarkable managerial career at best.
Okay. Yeah, I'm comfortable with A tier.
Yeah, that feels about right. He's an A plus tier, but A tier nonetheless. All right, after Knapp is Tony Lazzeri. One of the weirder nicknames, Push 'em Up Tony. So Tony was the the Yankees second baseman, the Murderers Row. He was there with Gehrig and Ruth. He only really had 2 amazing seasons. No MVP. Although when you're playing with Ruth and Gehrig, how the heck are you going to win an MVP? 48 WAR, not very much. Nothing in the way of impressive career totals. He had a shorter career. Only 1,800 hits. He had some pop for a second baseman, but not like a power hitter. Never led the league in anything good. He feels like one of those guys that just got in because he was there versus being, one of the, inner ring guys like his teammates. So, I don't mind him in. He certainly has, like, a case, but he's kind of like maybe an E tier or D tier. What do you think of Lazzeri?
Yeah, I mean, E sounds about right.
Yeah, like, I can buy him as a Hall of Famer, but you kind of, like, I wouldn't consider it a travesty if he had never gotten in. All right, after Lazzeri, we got Bill Mazeroski. So first thing you got to look at is 36 WAR. Second thing you got to look at is his 299 on base percentage and 84 OPS plus. So this guy was possibly the worst hitter of any Hall of Famer. But he was a Pirates lifer. He had the famous homer in the 1960 World Series. Hit a walk-off homer, bottom of the ninth of Game 7, won it all, beat the Yankees. Obviously, not in for his bat. He is in for his glove. That is about the greatest second baseman defensively as there ever was. And that was his reputation, the positional defensive GOAT. So to me, Bill Mazeroski is the poster boy for an E-tier Hall of Fame. Wow, another look at that, man. Him and Nellie Fox should get together and take some cessation classes. All right. So to me, Bill Mazeroski is you look at his numbers and you're like, what are you thinking? And then someone's like, oh, but he was the all-time greatest defensive second baseman. And you're like, okay, fine. I can buy the all-time greatest defensive second baseman getting in, even if he couldn't hit. But I don't like it that much, but I will allow it. Any words on Bill Mazeroski?
Yeah, I mean, he's a great second baseman. He's got the name recognition. He's just, you hear the name, but you're not blown away by anything he's done. If that makes sense.
Yeah, here, we can sort this table by D-WAR. So for what it's worth, Mazeroski is the D-WAR leader among Hall of Fame second basemen. So,
That's impressive.
Yeah. So to me, that's an E tier. It's like, okay, you're in for your glove, horrible hitter, but who cares because you were the second baseman defensively. 8 Gold Gloves, 10 All-Star games. So fine, you don't make the Hall of Fame better with your bat, but if you're the man with a glove, I can buy that. All right, next up after Bill Maz is Bid McPhee. So he's a dead ball 1800s guy. He's the Reds lifer. So he's a Red second baseman in the 1800s, mostly all throughout. I believe the Reds were formed right around this period in the early 1800s. So 107 OPS plus, 2,200 hits. No accolades, but I don't think there were many accolades to be had back then. He has a homer title and a triples title. So he got in the Veterans Committee in like 2000, I believe. Yeah, exactly 2000. So, I mean, he's one of those guys that didn't get into the Hall until, what did he die? Yeah, like way after he died. Let's look at his defeating good. He didn't really have any. I don't know. I like to see 6 WAR as a, kind of the, and I can like go down to 5. But yeah, I don't know. This is kind of a bad Hall of Fame pick. I mean, like if these historian researchers, kind of looked over his career and decided that, this guy was overlooked and he belongs, in the Hall of Fame, then fine. But like nobody's heard of him. He has no defensive great defensive second baseman. I'm sorry. Yeah, he might have been the Bill Mazeroski of the 1800s. I don't know. I'm inclined to just pop him right in the E tier along with Bill Mazeroski. Any words on Bid McPhee?
Yeah, no, I agree. He's E tier. I mean, it's just so hard with those guys from the 1800s.
Yeah.
You just don't know like how they would line up today.
Yep. Fair enough. All right. Now next up, Joe Morgan. So, in my very, very humble opinion, Joe Morgan is obviously an S tier second baseman. So 101 WAR. I think he won 2 MVPs back-to-back MVPs. He was the MVP for the Big Red Machine. Man, like he just was so good back then. He 4 WAR titles, cracked 5 times. Wow, just unbelievably good second baseman. One of the crazy things about him is Morgan was also a very prolific sportscaster, after he retired. And he was kind of known for being impatient with guys that walked a lot. But look how many times he walked. He led the league in walks 4 times and cracked 100, 10 times. And like 4 on base titles, like 392 on base percentage, 132 OPS plus from a second baseman. WAR didn't like his glove very much, but man, just such a good hitter. Like, who cares? I don't know. Any words on Joe Morgan?
He's S tier.
Yeah,
I like him. He's a likable guy. I think he belongs in the S tier.
Yeah, very obvious S tier to me. He was when I played video games, in the 90s, and you could pick all-time greats from every position. He was my second baseman, so I consider him the GOAT second baseman. Now, next up is Jackie Robinson. Jackie is way more than his statistics. I'll just put him in S tier right now because there's no discussion to be had there. So, of course, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. I don't even know how many WAR you want to consider that. He just created so many opportunities by, being brave and going through all the bullshit that he had to as a black man, the first black man. Man, and Andy missed some years in the military. Now, a lot of people seem to think Jackie Robinson only got in because he broke the color barrier. No, he was a Hall of Fame second baseman based on his playing career in the majors as it began when he was 28. This guy, he led the AL, NL majors in WAR 3 times, led in, for the KC Maroons, I believe. He led them in WAR his final year in the Negro Leagues. And this guy just means so much more than these numbers you're seeing, which are great. Like, to me, this guy's like, you add everything up and he's like way over 100 WAR in, overall value. Like, or he might be above Rogers Hornsby if you kind of were able to, quantify all he's done for baseball. Any words on Jackie Robinson?
I think he's an S tier. There's a lot of intangibles here. He's just an amazing human being. He broke the color barrier in baseball, served in the military, came back, still still played at a very high level. He belongs in the S tier, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we could go over his numbers, but they just don't really like cover the story at all. But obviously, an amazing Hall of Fame caliber second baseman, above and beyond everything else. All right, next we got Ryan Sandberg. So Rhino, he won an MVP in 1990, I would believe. Oh no, 84. But he in 1990, what did he do? He did something. He had 40 homers. So Rhino was an excellent hitting second baseman. Had a bit of a shorter career. He only, he missed the year 95. Well, 16 seasons. I guess that's not that short. He was a very good hitter. How many big WAR seasons did he have? It cracked 7 4 times and 6 or practically 6 a couple more times. I definitely consider him an above average Hall of Famer. Only 68 WAR, but again is 5.1 per 162 games. 9 Gold Gloves. So on top of his excellent bat, he was also an excellent. Ooh, he won the Home Run Derby one year. That's pretty cool. 10 All-Stars. Yeah, this guy feels like a very strong B-tier Hall of Famer to me. Like above average, but no one amazing, unbelievable thing you can point to. What do you think of Rhino?
I think he's a B tier.
Yeah, it just feels pretty obvious B tier to me. All right, last and arguably least is Red Schoendienst, I believe. Yeah, Schoendienst. All right, so Red was a 10-time All-Star. He won 2 rings. I believe he played mostly for the Cards, then bounced around a little bit late in his career. Came back and finished up with the Cards. So, what did he get? He was a decent hitter. He had 200 hits and led the league in doubles once. This is OPS plus. 94, so must be a glove first guy. Yeah, a plus fielder as WAR goes for guys his age. I think he managed too. I believe he was a manager for a while. Longtime manager for the Cards. Yeah, he managed the Cards for 14 seasons, 12 full seasons. All right, so basically what we have here is a guy that was a good hitter, he was a good fielder, and he was a good manager, and those things all just kind of add up to a Hall of Famer. I think that's kind of the narrative with him. He did have some good, very good seasons, so he wasn't like, a bad player at all or anything. Just kind of didn't have much of a sustained peak. I don't know. I think he's in for, just being an all-around baseball guy. He also lived to be, 95? Yeah, it says right there. Okay, yeah, I don't know. Obviously, 45 WAR. I don't think he missed any time in World War II, did he? He came up in 45, so he might have fought in the war instead of the minors. But I don't think that cost him any playing time. So, yeah, forget about that. What do you have? 2,500 hits. That's pretty good. Not a power hitter. I don't know. He feels like a D tier to me. Any words on Red Schoendienst?
No, I mean, look, I think it's the addition of everything that makes him a great candidate. I would agree, like, C or D tier sounds about right. I'm leaning more toward D.
Yeah, D feels good. Okay, so now let's go back to Eddie Collins. Okay, so we've got 3 S tier out of 20. To me, that's a lot. I mean, S tier needs to be kind of like I feel like if there's even an argument whether you belong in S tier, you probably don't. So given all this, do you still think Eddie Collins? Do you think Eddie Collins is among Joe Morgan, Jackie Robinson, and Rogers Hornsby, or does he kind of just not quite match up with those guys, even though he does have the WAR?
I think he matches up.
Do you?
I mean, pull up WAR for people that have 120 or more.
All right, well, all I got right here is all second basemen, but here, I'll sort by WAR. So we got Rogers Hornsby with 127. Eddie's right behind him with 124. Obviously, WAR likes him. There's no doubt about it. He's a WAR guy. Like, WAR was designed for guys like Eddie Collins. So And, WAR is a great way of, identifying the great players. But I don't think it's just as simple as sort by WAR and then that's what you do. I think you have to kind of look at other stuff as well. And I think reputation, you have to look at that too. And a lot of people don't even know who Eddie Collins is.
Yeah, I mean, I could put him down in A, but I still, if I were gonna pound the table on anybody that's a second baseman, Eddie Collins would be one of them.
I hear you. All right, tell you what. It's our video. We'll just leave him right there. What are you going to do about it, viewer? All right. Well, thanks, everybody. That wraps up our second baseman tier list. What do you think? Did we get anything way off? Where does Eddie Collins belong? Is it weird that... Are we too harsh? Are there too many D and E's? Do we not have enough B and C's? Maybe we need to take second baseman defense into account more and, rank more toward the middle of the pack. This is a weird bimodal distribution, but tell us in the comments what you think. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. All right, Smokey, thanks for your time. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.